We see the likes of China's Wuhan province saying that they'll test the entire population. We know that China has the capacity to do that. Is this something that we can see replicated in the US and around the world? And to what extent does that help us gauge an idea of when it will be safe to fully reopen the economies?
Yeah, I think that's the question. And the answer is yes. I think here in the States, we're not far from having widely available testing. As you mentioned, our organization has had the good fortune, just with some foresight, at having not only the testing, but PPE and all matter supply chain to be able to really do testing at scale. I don't think we're far away from that. I think when you consider the testing and how close we are, and also the numerous data points we have around what this disease means, we're probably not far away from being able to continue this reopening strategy in a more thoughtful way. We now know what we didn't know 8 weeks ago, that it doesn't hit everybody the same. We now know it's far more fatal for those that are under 60 than we thought initially. And information is power. And I think the data points plus getting better and wider spread testing puts us in a much better position than we were just a few weeks ago.
At the same time, though, it seems that antibody testing, just a few weeks ago, everyone we spoke to, every expert said this is really kind of the silver bullet, right, to be able to meaningfully and confidently reopen economies is to be able to get widespread antibody testing. Since then, we've learnt that they're not that reliable. They may tell us that someone has antibodies, but we don't even know how long that antibody effect works for. And at the same time, we're still months, if not, a year or two away from vaccine progress. So, where, I guess, do you stand when it comes to antibody testing, and is it really as useful as we might have thought a month ago?
That's a great point. You're exactly right. And if you look at it kind of from the most intelligent perspective, the way to look at it, building on your point, is as follows. Number one, right now, when you try to do things in an expedited manner and you condense time frames, you mentioned vaccines, but if we stay on the testing, it shouldn't be a surprise if you think logically that the first few tests we roll out to a novel disease are not perfect. They were okay. I think what we do know is the testing is getting better. We're getting rapidly on specificity and sensitivity. We're improving dramatically. And then the point around how much immunity and for how long is the positive antibody in the serum procure immunity, I don't think that's going to be obvious anytime in the immediate future. But the answer to that, as well as when we'll actually have a vaccine, cannot be what we kind of hang our hat on as much as some of the other data points in terms of reopening on some gradual basis in the immediate future. And what I mean by that is, given that we know that most of the population can withstand this in a safe manner, we know that the elderly with chronic and comorbidities need to stay safe and inside. And as long as we know that the basics will work the best, more than anything, the hand washing, masks, and so on, which are basic measures, as long as we employ them, that's what's caused the plateau in cases, and there's no reason we should stop that. So when you put those data points together, I don't think we need to hold our breath for a vaccine. Obviously, we want a vaccine as soon as possible, but we can move with a lot more confidence and more safety, frankly, just with the data points we do have.
So, Zeyad, anybody who shows up at your facility can actually get a COVID-19 test?
Oh, yeah. We have over 30 urgent cares across New York and New Jersey.
But can they get the test without presenting any symptoms if they think they've come in contact with somebody? Because the problem right now has been that you need to have severe symptoms in order to get a test. So how available are they?
No, what I would say is you do not have to have severe symptoms to get the tests at our facilities. You need to have symptoms that are suggestive of it. So even if you don't have severe symptoms, we can test you, because even if you don't have severe symptoms, you might be taking care of the grandma or grandfather who, if they get any viral load, it would be a problem. So that's justification to do the test if you have a fever or cough, even if you're not acutely ill. So it is readily available at our facilities.
But you need to have symptoms. What happens to the asymptomatic cases? Because the issue right now is that people without symptoms are spreading the disease. When you say that we might see these widespread tests around the United States, doesn't that also include people that potentially are not showing symptoms, but they need those tests in order to make sure that they don't go around spreading the disease?
Okay, so that's an excellent question. I'll answer it this way. As some of the states have reopened, take, for instance, elective surgery. So at ambulatory surgery centers, New York has been conservative because we have so many cases, more than half the United States, but other states have allowed elective cases. So there, where patients and doctors that work at these centers may have no symptoms because we're reopening, quote unquote, there's policies across the country where they will just do testing the day before a procedure on a patient with no symptoms and staff with no symptoms. So your point is very well taken. Now, just to answer it completely, if you're saying, well, Zeyad, how about doing this nationwide? I would tell you that that's the kind of decision that we have to partner with the government, because there you're going to really ramp up utilization of the equipment and testing. And again, don't forget, if you start testing at scale, everybody who does a test needs to have PPE. So you're going to be close to these patients. So you don't forget, when this started, that was as big of an issue, if not bigger, on a supply chain basis as was testing. So we need to be in partnership with the government that we have enough supplies across the nation to perform that. But again, given that it's less of an issue now than it was then, I think we're pretty close to that.
But what are you seeing in the government level, especially on the federal level? Because the reopenings of all of these states are happening, whether we like it or not. Individually, voluntarily, these states are opening up. But what are we seeing in the federal level? That there's coordination with hospitals and PPE equipment is being provided? Because we keep hearing that states are responsible for this as well.
Great point. And I think that's why you're seeing kind of this lumpy reopening, right? Because what the federal government has basically said is it's on the states to make the decision that they want to. And so states are kind of having myriad different decisions, which then, of course, pushes that decision-making down to the average citizen. And I think citizens, now that we do have information we didn't have, can make that independent decision. And if you come to the doctor's office, like our facility, and you're going to state that, hey, you know, I went back to work and I'm starting to have symptoms, testing is readily available. In terms of I'm going back to work tomorrow, I don't have any symptoms, but I still want to be tested. I think we're at a point now where that's a bit of a partnership between the doctor and the patient that wasn't before. But I would say, at least in New York and New Jersey, the signaling is not to just test everybody asymptomatically. We're still one step short of that.